All right. All right. So here we have Kyla Love for this podcast episode. Hey, Kyla,
Hello, Mark.
how are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm
We
good.
what did we just met 2 weeks ago, right? At that cafe?
Something like that. Yeah, I was like, who's that weird guy over there? Just like
Yeah.
putting his, yeah,
I was doing that and then I was
finger
like,
up his nose.
I gotta meet this girl. No, no, we've known each other for ooh, do you
Was it,
2016
was it
maybe?
2016 maybe?
Yeah. And so I'm going to just tell the story about how I found out about you, and then I'll read your bio, and then we're going to get to talking. Well, I don't even have a title yet, but this is just about, and I thought Kyla was the perfect person to talk about this with. And it's really about giving up the struggle and trying too hard to make things happen, and what happens when you do that. But just for me, I'll just tell you that, I've done a lot of interviews on this podcast, and it was during the time when I was doing well. I call it skating. Like in my life, I go through periods where things are working out and I'm skating and things are just happening, and then I go through a period where, okay, it's growth time. It's time to get myself out of my comfort level and figure out my shit and and it's actually the next step because we're always growing, right, Kyla?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
100%.
right. And so I wanted to, and I don't do this a lot. I don't invite a lot of people on here. Well, anyway.
It's so
Um,
cool they all come to you.
Well, it's just I've been on a lot of other people's podcasts,
Yeah.
and then I put it on my podcast, and just I've had awesome conversations. But what I wanted to do is create a podcast where, for me, the time during when I was kind of being challenged,
Mhm.
and it's easy to talk about this stuff when you're skating and just doing well, you know, and
Yeah.
so for me, I'm being challenged right now, and I thought, let's share that. And who better to talk about this than you, Kyla? Anyway, I have such high regard for you, but okay. So I'll talk about how I got to meet you, and I won't try not to make it a long story, but I just, I heard about Gary Temple Bodley, and the Joshua podcast, the Law of Attraction. What is it? The Law of
Uh,
Attraction.
it was the Teachings of Joshua Roundtable
The
back
round
then.
table, the
Yeah.
Law of Attraction round table, or
I
teaching.
think
Yeah.
it was Teachings of Joshua. I think now well, I don't think it exists anymore. But anyway.
Right. Okay. So I used to listen to Kyla and Gary and Wendy and then a few other people. I used to listen to this podcast from Gary Temple Bodley, who channels Joshua, and they used to just talk about the law of attraction, and just, I guess Joshua doesn't call, it's the next level of the law of attraction,
Yeah.
they would say. And I loved the podcast, and I loved how I was a big Abraham Hicks fan, huge, still am. They were like my number one teacher in my life. And but Esther was a little older than me, and um, a lot older than me. And I love the information, but as far as aligning with the people, so Gary channels Joshua, and Gary's my age, and he's funny, and the podcast was just real and authentic. And so listening to you and Kyla, you and Gary and Wendy, and it was funny, and I just really became a fan. And you, Kyla, I just thought, this girl, man, she's so wise, and just your thoughts, and I just really resonated with everything you had to say. And then you guys had a law of attraction cruise, and I came on. That's how I met you. And
That's
then
right.
eventually became part of that podcast. And then we
Yeah.
could talk about the rest of that later. Um, but so I'll just read your bio, Kyla. Kyla Love is a powerful creator with a soft heart and a newly embodied sense of self-love and acceptance that matches her love and acceptance for you. Kyla is also founder of kdLOVEco, where she channels her gifts into creative consulting, web and graphic design, and digital marketing services to help you grow a business built around you.
Great job.
Is that all right? Should I read that again?
That was perfect. You know, that bio right there is actually a perfect example of what we're talking about today. Because there have been so many times where in my head, I'm like, because that's something that I help other people do is write their bios. And I've thought a million times, like, I really need to write a bio for myself. And so I've had like struggled, you know, trying to find the perfect words. And then you texted me yesterday asking for a bio for this podcast. And I was in the middle of a bunch of different things. And so I didn't have time to struggle. And so it occurred to me to just like not send anything and be like, you figure it out, Mark, you know, or say whatever you want. But I just like took a breath and relaxed, and that just flowed out, and it'll probably change a million more times. But so that's an example of just relaxing. And then what you need, just showing up, you know, that was perfectly adequate, I think.
Yeah. And I think what's your unapologetically myself, or what is it? What do you like to say?
Well, at the time that I was on the podcast, that was an idea that I was really exploring, was authenticity in general. That's something I'll be forever exploring. But yeah, being unapologetically me.
Yeah.
Because I was one of those people, you hear this all the time, where somebody's just constantly like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, just like basically apologizing for existing. And that was me at the time, without even realizing that's what I was doing. So yeah, I went through a big exploration, and still do in different ways, but of being myself unapologetically. And I think that was one of the things that was special about that podcast, like with Joshua or with Gary and Wendy, and then you eventually at the time, was that, especially for me, and I think all of us, we were really open about our challenges, you know, that we were going through at the time. Like I was definitely going through a lot, like had just left a marriage and was trying to figure out life on my own, you know, and so there were lots of different components that made that both a challenging time and also like a really exciting, like learning how to relax and surrender and let things flow. But yeah, I also appreciate about like Gary and Joshua, the same like you do, how those teachings, those ideas that we talked about are really just like real life application of these kind of airy-fairy principles, like how we can actually embody them and live them out. So I'll be forever grateful for all of those experiences and teachings. So yeah.
Totally, me too. And some of the concepts that you would hear maybe from Abraham, maybe in some ways, but this is just, I think of Joshua when I think of everything is for you. Everything is for you. And to get your mind wrapped around that is very cool and can be challenging, you know. But yeah, that's one of the things that I really liked about you is you know, and I've been running business. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. And my whole thing was being authentic. And the thing with the bio, like when I had to make my bio, you know, never easy for me, and, you know, and always working on it. And I remember, you know, before you learn how to do the pitch, the elevator pitch, what do you do in 30 seconds?
Yeah.
And I still don't have one. You know, back when I was learning how to do it, I would write it and change it all the time. And then I said, screw it, because I never felt like this is perfect. And I might still come up with something, but because what I felt, Kyla, is that every moment changes and it depends on who I'm talking to, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, and I don't want to be that guy who has like that memorized thing, because that never felt right to me. And so just unapologetically yourself is my journey as well, trying to do that for me too. So that's one of and I also want to say another thing that I really love about you is, you know, we are a tight family. Since 2016, we met so many people thanks to Gary and the teachings of Joshua. And we really, I don't know, man, it's like family. And I know it sounds cliche and corny, but we just came from Florida, you know, on a trip. And then I saw you months before on another trip. So we get together because it's just fun.
Yeah. I call it my soul family reunions, because it feels like a place. I mean, it feels kind of like a family reunion, but it's this group of people that just get together and show up as themselves. And that's not to say that we all love each other so deeply, but there's like obviously going to be personality conflicts and little things like that where we just like get on each other's nerves or whatever. But because we come from this basis of just like complete and total love and acceptance no matter what. It gives us the power to work through all of that and just have so much fun together. So it's a really special thing.
So fun. So fun. And the thing with you, Kyla, is that sometimes I'll explain concepts about me, or I'll just try to, last time in Florida, when I'll explain things that I'm going through and you get it, I just can't believe sometimes you will mirror back to me what you feel that I'm saying. I'm like, oh shit, Kyla gets it, man. And I think more than anybody. So just your understanding of, and it's just not me, but just how I feel about me. So anyway, I have that appreciation for you, that I can talk to you about stuff that's not easy to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Remember we were in the pool talking about stuff?
Yeah.
That's just one example. So anyway.
About that, like what you just said there. So that's one of those things that, like, I think that everything, what we might consider a struggle is also an opportunity, things like that. But like, so that ability that you see in me to be able to like listen and really understand and get it and like mirror back to somebody, that comes from what could be perceived as a weakness. Like the whole reason that my journey is in exploring authenticity is because I would completely lose myself in other people before, where I would just like put myself in their shoes, but also like into their body, into their mind, and their heart and everything, and kind of forget that Kyla was another entity that existed that had thoughts and feelings and all of that. And so that's part of how I got so good at doing that. And now that I'm balancing out with like offering those same gifts and like listening skills to myself, I think it makes it a lot more, I don't know, potent, I guess. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's super interesting how you put that. So you are all about other people and you might lose yourself in them, but in that you got a skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you're a really good listener, and just this understanding of these concepts is for me, it's deep and good. So why don't you talk about I think when I first got on the podcast and when I met you, was I skating then? Well, I think I was doing both, because being on the podcast, for me, I've never done anything like that. And I'm kind of in the background, and I'm not I'm more introverted right? I mean, the more I do this work and the more I do tapping and this kind of work, the more extroverted I've become. But things were flowing for me after that. And boy, did they really start flowing for me. And I really got into, I call it a magical time in my life where things just lined up for me. And not without challenges, but I remember I'll just say what I remember, then you tell me what you were going through. I remember you were trying a lot of things.
Yeah.
And you were so open about what you were trying and your vulnerability. That's another thing about you, is you don't fake it. If you're going through some shit, you're going to share it. And I think so talk to me about when I first met you, what you were going through and your experience there.
Sure. So I said that like I had just left a marriage at that time in my life. And so I was in this new point where I was kind of rediscovering myself, not just outside of the context, because I also have kids. And so it felt like at times lost myself in these roles of like wife and mother and like everything that I was being for everybody else. So when I came out of that relationship and had this time on my own, and like the kids were going back and forth 50-50. And so I had like actual time to myself with myself. It could have gone lots of different ways, but I knew that if I didn't start really diving in and deciding who I am, who I want to be, what are my interests, what are my passions, all these different kinds of things, then I could, anyway, I didn't want to find out what would happen if I didn't do that. So I started exploring lots of different things, both like personally and professionally. I went through like a big exploration around my sexuality and, relationships and intimacy, and uncovering all these things that I hadn't seen that were like, rooted in my past or relationships with my parents or different things, and how those were affecting relationships that I was having in the present day. So starting to kind of uncover that, and then play with different ideas of what relationships could look like and how I wanted to show up in them, like with different dynamics. That was a big focus of my exploration at the time. And then also, I had been a stay-at-home mom for 4.5 years, and then was in this position where I needed to start bringing my own income and supporting myself and supporting my kids. And that was a whole journey, where, I mean, there was some, I guess, like relief in the beginning, because there was some, spousal support, like right after our relationship, like right after our divorce, but that came to an end shortly thereafter. And so it really was like do or die, and so, or not die, but it felt that way.
It feels that way, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It
Right.
felt like stakes were high. And so I experimented with a lot of different things. I found a job doing hospital newborn photography and really loved that. But what I see is just like kind of how you were talking about moving from one level to the next. Like I will dive into something and then grow and feel myself expanding beyond it, and just recognize that it's time to move on to the next thing. So I've done a lot of that. And a lot of the times when I have been the least happy was when I was trying to hold on to those things too tightly past the point that they were good for me, right?
Wow.
Past the point that they were serving me or I was serving them anymore. And so I did that a little bit with that job, but had been kind of starting to leverage these other skills that I did study in school a little bit. Like one of my degrees was journalism, mass comm, and like electronic media production was the concentration. So I had some kind of basic graphic design and marketing skills that I had picked up back in school. And then when I was staying at home with the kids, I started doing some freelancing. So I had these skills and I just really wanted to start putting them to work and seeing what I could do with them. And I had, like, one of the ways that I got in contact with Gary and Joshua was, I reached out to them with questions in the beginning, but then I offered to like help out in the Facebook page, like making social media content and stuff like that. So I'd started kind of building on these skills. But there came a point where I was like ready to just leap. And so I just did it. I quit my job and I went to work for Gary part-time, and then just kind of took this, had a lot of faith that everything was going to work out the way that it needed to for everything else. And it did for a long time. Just kind of putting myself out there and seeing what I could do. Like, can I try this here? Yeah. Okay. That's working out. Let's do a little bit more of that. Can I try this over here? I can try it, but I kind of fell on my face. Maybe that's not the way to go. So it was just this time of real like experimentation. And luckily I just had a support system to like be there with me and help both like lift me up and keep me grounded at the same time while I was kind of bouncing around trying all these different things. So I don't know.
Who was your support system?
Well, like my parents, and I had really good, like a couple of really good friends around me. And like, so just from different angles, the people that I surrounded with myself with, like the relationships that I was building up as this new version of me, helped me feel, I guess, safer in doing that. Whereas previously, like when I would try new things, I would just go out on my own, be like, fuck what everybody else thinks. And I still had a little bit of that during that time, but because I was so insecure about it falling apart that I didn't want to tell anybody about it. But that's when I first started learning to just be really open and not like be less afraid, be less concerned with what people are thinking of me or whether or not they would approve of my decisions. So it was a pivotal time.
Yeah. I think this is good. So good to hear because for, we're both entrepreneurs, and to, for entrepreneurs, these stories are very good to hear, and your journey is very good to hear. And, when we were doing the podcast, we would just share what we're going through in our, and be honest about, oh yeah, we're struggling. We might be struggling here. We're trying this out now. And we share that, and everyone who listened to, Gary's podcast, which I think there's value in listening to that. What I want to do, I think, is share a few stories about how this idea of like, I'll start with one, a time in my life, and I want to share maybe 3 each. Obviously, if there's less or more, that's fine. but to start off with 3 each, and maybe we could take turns.
Yeah. Totally.
Of when we wanted something maybe, and then we were trying and efforting, and then we stopped and kind of did more of the Joshua, Abraham, or whatever felt to us type of idea, that when we're trying and when we're trying to make things happen, and also for maybe I don't want to say wrong reasons, but maybe it's we want to get something that we think we want, but maybe our true inner self might have another idea of it. So just kind of getting ourselves out of our own way, and just letting go more of it. It's to use a overused word is surrender, but that word really sums it up for me, I believe. So one example I'll give, and this is, I'll start with the earliest one, way back in the day. I remember there was a time when I was dating a lot. I don't even know if you know this story. Who knows? You've heard all my stories, but long story short, I was dating a lot, and I wanted to, like, how come I can't find a girl that I don't like? And oh, I would, date someone else. And I was just looking for a girlfriend. Like, this is, boy, man, this is, this was like when I was maybe 18, 19, something like that. 18, 19, 20. And it wasn't working out. It was just, and I remember I spent years doing that, a few years of just, trying to date, trying to find someone to like, and it wasn't working out. So what I did was I started my recording studio. And now I guess I'm using these law of attraction. I'm using the law of attraction approach, but I didn't do it on purpose. What I did was I started working on my something that I loved, and I forgot about a girlfriend, and I forgot about dating. And I started, a passion was my recording studio and music, and I just got into that. And what happened after that was I met someone, and I met someone else, and then I met Kelly, and which led to, and then we got married, and we were, Kelly's the love of my life and all that. So how I see that happening is when we're trying to force something, we're actually in our own way. And getting out of our own way. And the way I got out of my own way was I forgot about it. I forgot about what I wanted. And this idea from Abraham Hicks would say, when you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. And your inner self knows, our inner self knows everything that we want. And it knows the fastest way to get there. And so when I stopped trying, and when I just got, but she would also, Abraham Hicks would also say that when you've been doing it for a while, the vision of what you want becomes even stronger. Not vision, but they call it, like, it's in the vortex, like it's there for you. And if let's say you've been trying something for 3 years, well, the other side of that 3 years is even a stronger, I guess, a stronger manifestation of what that is. If you've been trying something for a week or two, it might not be as strong. So I guess the other end of the struggle is something kind of grand and big. And so this struggling of trying to find someone I loved or liked for a couple years, even if I wasn't finding that person, it was on the other side of it was on the other side there waiting for me to just let go and align and get out of my own way. So sometimes Abraham Hicks would say, don't even think about what you want, forget. If you want to find a girlfriend, you got to forget the girlfriend and be happy where you are and find that self-love. And I guess for me, that was the fulfillment that I was having. And instead of really trying to get a girlfriend that might complete me or something like that. So as soon as I got out of my own way and I did these things with my recording studio, shit started happening, and one led to another to Kelly. So that's just one story.
Yeah. So in that, did you say, was there like a moment when you realized, God, I got to give this up? Or did it just, your attention just kind of naturally shifted to what you were passionate about?
It just naturally shifted.
Yeah.
I wasn't even trying to make anything happen. I kind of gave up because nothing was working out. And then the studio and the recording studio just came into existence, and I just went for it.
Yeah.
Made myself happy.
Yeah, that's great. Because imagine how differently things could have gone if you would have just stayed so focused. Like the recording studio stuff might not even been able to get in because of your focus on this other thing, and that would have radically altered the trajectory. Like
that's true.
So
yeah,
that's a good one.
Thanks.
So I was trying to, I have a couple stories. And so one of my, like from a couple years ago, so talking about being entrepreneurs, like I have, I guess, tried and failed in quotes a few times at this entrepreneurship journey, or like where I've had to, or chosen to, I guess, go back into the working world. So it's been what's felt like stops and starts. And so there's been what has felt like struggle involved in that, like on both sides. But so I was working at a job and like starting to feel discontented with it, like starting to feel the call to go out on my own and do my own thing again. But had kind of seen what happened in the past when I did that before I was ready. So it was one of those situations where I held on a little bit past the point that I should have, just out of fear. And so I ended up being let go from that job, which was a huge shock, felt like like this terrible thing. And so I immediately started trying to like force my own thing happening. I like that day, I don't even remember, like, I was like, okay, I have to do this, and this, and like all these things to get myself set up to start, like have my own business in place and yada, yada, yada. And after about a month of like, just trying to like force it into existence, it just wasn't happening. And so there came this point of surrender where I just was like, maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe I am supposed to have a job for some reason, even though like saying job made me want to be like, but so I just like in surrender got online one day and started applying for jobs, but like still had a bit of a little attitude with the universe about it. Excuse me. But so the kinds of jobs I was applying for was like skills that I had that were not necessarily fully creative in the things that I wanted to do, but I thought that would be the easiest job to get. So I was kind of just like applying I had call center experience. And so I applied for a call center job that seemed like it was well paying, and like these other jobs that weren't really what I was interested in, but as my way of just like kind of hanging on to what I want, I guess, or in the moment, it just felt natural. Like I just uploaded my creative resume that had all my skills on it, even though it wasn't necessarily tailored to those jobs. It's just kind of what I was inspired to do. And so I never heard anything back from any of that, kind of surrendered even more. It was because I went in this series of events where my mom ordered something for the boys and asked me to go pick it up for her at Kohl's. So I went into Kohl's and I saw they had a hiring sign. And I was like, oh, you guys are hiring? How much do you pay? And they're like, well, do you want to interview right now? And so I got in it, like I had an interview and I got hired on the spot to work at Kohl's for the holiday season. And I was like, okay, where's this taking me? Because Kohl's obviously isn't my dream job, but it's something, it's better than nothing. I mean, so maybe it's a sign towards something. And so I had my first day at Kohl's, and this is probably like a month and a half after that day where I had applied to jobs online. And so I went in for my first day at Kohl's and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I can't do this. I can't work at Kohl's. Like something has to happen. And then I was driving home and like, so that's what I was thinking the whole time during my shift. And I was driving home and I was just like, I give up, like whatever, I'm here. This must be where I'm meant to be. Okay, let's do this. All right. I'm a Kohl's employee, and I got home and my phone rang And it was a recruiter who had seen one of my applications for those other jobs. And she was like, you know, that job isn't going to work for you, but I have this other job that would be perfect. And that's this job that I just came out of right before I started my business, where I learned all of these skills, all of this structure, all of the discipline, everything that I needed in order to be able to go out and do things on my own, like for real this time. Yeah. So like, because I relaxed in lots of different ways, relaxed in being willing to apply for jobs, relaxed into just like accepting that maybe this Kohl's thing is for me, relaxed into all these different things. This job showed up that was just 100% perfect for me in that moment. I could have asked for anything better, a better group of people to work with. So that's my story, I guess, of the time that I relaxed and then everything just kind of flowed in.
Yeah. Wow. So sorry, I got a little message that said our meeting is going to be done in 10 minutes unless I upgrade. And I'm like, so I'm upgrading while you're talking, but I'm listening. So, because I don't want this to, I don't want this to end. So so you relaxed and things worked out. So relaxing. Yeah. And okay. So, and when you talked about, having kind of an attitude about the job and you're like, oh, so my next story is just totally relates to that. So when I had the recording studio, I had it because I was going to do music. Back then, I was in my 20s and I was going to do music for the rest of my life. I was never going to have that 9 to 5. Hell no. Yeah. And long story short, I got to the end of that. I think it was 6 years. And I'm like, I'm not growing anymore. I need to do something else. I don't know what it is. So I closed down my recording studio. And I'm like, okay. At that time I was living with Kelly and I had to come up with rent. And so I started to get temp work. And so as I'm getting temp work, I'm like, I want to find something that I love and a job, a 9 to 5 job, something, or I was just thinking of some kind of a job that I would like and fulfill me. Mm-hmm. And the temp work, I was having a hard time because in my experience, they weren't treating temps that nicely, and you don't feel like you belong to the company. And I don't know, it was a tough experience for me. It was my dark night of the soul, I guess, for the biggest one in my life, because not right in the beginning, but that lasted for a few years. I was lost, and then I still had my musical equipment, so I tried to start a jingles business. And I got I would make a demo and I send it out to different ad agencies, and that failed miserably. And I had never failed like that before, because when I did my recording studio, that shit just did pretty fast, and I got clients relatively fast, and so I lost hope in myself, and I would everything I tried, and then I'm not happy with these temp jobs, and I wasn't making a lot of money. I was broke, and so 2 years out of this, I realized, my way is not working. And law of attraction says you can't attract a better situation from stress and struggle and fear and worry. So I'm like, all right, man, I'm going to do this other way, and which is to let go and to feel better, feel better. And so, and I tell the story. Well, I told the story in my last podcast episode, and I've told it before, but this is my story. This is my dark night of the soul story. And I guess, saying it out loud, you can't say it too many times, because there's something to be really learned from, I think, for me. And it was a big moment in my life when I said, all right, I'm going to let go of the struggle. And so what I did was I would drive around, Kyla, in my car, and I would park at nice places where I had nice views. And I would just, maybe in nature, or just, I remember one place I parked, there was a lot of deer walking around, and it was very peaceful. And I would sit in my car and I would chill out, and I would chill out, maybe meditate, maybe listen to music. I wasn't doing that before. I was kind of struggling, and I was just on the grind, right? We know the grind, and I've done the grind before. Yeah. And so again, couple years of just of these experiences with these temp jobs and the struggle. The other side of that was something that once in this experience, once I let go and practiced feeling better for no reason.
Mhm.
Things happened relatively quickly. But I will say that as I'm in that car chilling out, or if I'm in a park and I'm just maybe meditating or just being in nature and feeling peaceful, I had that voice, that other voice saying, dude, hit the pavement. What are you doing? You have to figure out what you need to make more money. You got to figure out how you're going to pay the bills. You got to figure out what you want and how to, you got to make it happen. So it's that action journey that there's that voice I think a lot of us have. And the other voice is you don't deserve to feel good until you get what you want.
Right.
You don't deserve to feel good. So what was my job? I figured out my job wasn't to figure out my next move. My job was to feel better and temper that voice.
Mhm.
So just in spite of that voice, I'm going to still do that work. And then once I did that for a few weeks and shit started working out, right? I got this one job, it was really good. And then I got a better job and then a really good job that, that I loved. And I was there for 6 or 7 years and I made enough money to feel good enough to just establish enough to marry Kelly and buy a car and get myself together. And anyway, so that was a huge one for me. That was a huge one for me where I'm like, this law of attraction shit works if you do it the right way, and there's a lot of, law of attraction. People talk about it in so many different ways and there's so many teachers of it. And and if I may say, I think people's understanding of it can be the trying really hard, like the vision board
Yeah.
can be trying really hard, or
Yeah.
repeating affirmations 50 times,
Yeah.
or visualizing what you want and focusing on it every day. So tell me why is that sometimes counter to our understanding of kind of getting closer to what we want?
Yeah. I mean, even the next level of that, which is what helped me get to where I am today, but the processing beliefs in order to figure out what's underneath the fear so that I can release the fear. Like I even took that to an extreme that was counterproductive, but because what I'm finding for myself is the more that I can, take my attention off of it. And that's different for me than just sticking my head in the sand, because I've done that too, where I just try to completely ignore something and hope it goes away. And it's not the same thing. It's where I can look at any situation in my life with honest and be honest with myself about it. Like, this is where I am, and it's okay if it hurts, and it's okay if I don't like it, and it's okay if I want something different, but this is where I am right now. And the more that I can just relax into the acceptance of that, the more, and then that opens me up to being able to see how it could actually possibly be for me. And then that opens me up to relax and not shut out all these other possibilities, because I'm so focused on this one thing that I think that I want, or these things that I think that I don't want, when I can just completely and totally accept everything as it is. This is just where we are right now. Because what I've seen so many times, because I am just very introspective, sometimes to the extreme. But what I have seen is that the source of so much of my discontent and sadness and all these things that I've experienced is from wanting something, and even things that are perfect, everything is perfectly valid to want, but wanting something and then feeling like I'm not getting it. That's what causes 99% of my, because it's at this core level of, it's probably love, acceptance, approval, safety, whatever it is, but that might have the face of a relationship on it. When I want love, I think that I want a boyfriend, or when I want safety, I think that I have to have a house, or whatever it is. But so just kind of taking a step back and being okay that I want these things, and being okay that maybe they're not here just yet in the way that I think that they should be. That's gone so far, a lot farther than the affirmations and trying to make myself feel better and trying to attract these things to me. Well,
I mean, you just touched on a great point, and that is that, this idea that what we think we want, let's say I want to bring in more money into my life, which this is one of my challenges right now. And then we have our idea of how that's going to happen, right? Oh, with my business or this way. And that is when we're in our own way often, because this idea that when we consciously try to figure this shit out, we are not utilizing the power of the universe, that the magical part, that once we get out of our own way, we can get what we want, probably not the way that we thought that was going to happen, maybe not, and especially in my experience, not the timing. I might think I'm ready for something. I have so many examples of that. But when I let go of my timing of it, something will come, an experience will come into my, when I let go, and then an experience come into my experience, and then I will follow that journey. And I realized when I look back, that helped me get closer to what I want. So this surrender and what you just talked about of letting go strongly of what we want and maybe what that might look like. Yeah.
So that kind of ties into another of my story examples, is that so that job that I talked about that I got, that was perfect for me. I worked there for 2 years and then reached that point again where I had expanded beyond it, was feeling this calling again, held on maybe a little bit too long, and then was kind of thrust into, by the universe, just it's time, you're going. And so I launched this business as it is now. And it was a real challenge in the beginning. I had a couple clients, consistent enough, but it was just it was repeating this pattern that I've had in my life where it's expansion, contraction, especially in terms of finances. And so I did a similar thing where I kind of at first dove in and tried to do all the things all the right ways so that I could start getting more clients and start building my business.
Right.
And
Right.
it was a really interesting time where again, in those times, the challenge and the struggle, that's always when I learned the most about myself.
Totally.
So I did and so I was remembering a lot more than ever before, okay, I don't have to make myself miserable. It's not going to bring me what I want doing things that way. So I can step back and relax. I can take breaks. I don't have to be on my laptop from 7:30 in the morning until 8 at night, just so I can feel like I'm doing something.
Being productive.
Right. And so things did start to grow, and I started to have a little bit more sense of okay, we're getting places. And then right as it felt like I was at this pivotal point where things were just starting to things were on the horizon. They weren't quite here yet, but I could see them. And then this was probably just a couple of months ago where I would have one really good month and then it would be back to kind of bare bones, but I could see that the good months were coming. They were on the way. But it was kind of a bare bones time. And then I was driving my kids to school one morning and somebody ran into my car and completely totaled it. And it it was a lot to process.
How long ago was this?
This was a couple months ago. So
Same.
3 months ago. Really?
A month ago, but anyway.
That's so funny. And
oh my God. Okay.
Isn't it funny how it comes at those times? Because
yes,
I had meetings coming up. I had prospective clients that I thought that I was going to get, but I had $50 in my bank account, and it was just one of those times where it's okay, I gotta, where the energy is ramping up to okay, what is it going to work out? Is it going to work? And then that happened. Right. And I was just what the fuck?
Right. Yes, I do.
Not only am I still challenged, quote unquote, with getting clients and running my business and yada, but now I have doctor's visits and car insurance to deal with and not having a ride. But anyway, and so luckily it was just a 4-hour period right after that happened because my kids were with me. Their dad took them so that I could deal with this stuff. I got the immediate things settled, and then I came home and I just sat and like stared at the wall, and I was just like spinning, like, and had that feeling of like, oh my God, okay, what do I do? I got to do this. I got to do that. And then I saw what was happening inside. Like, I'm getting better and better and better at observing myself, like kind of taking a step outside of myself, seeing what's happening, recognizing the reactions in my body that then fuel the thoughts and emotions. And so if I can like kind of calm my body first and then open up space for new thoughts and reaction, like emotions. And so I just like went and sat outside and just decided not to think about any of it, just to like sit and exist. And just like, that was the only thing that I had to do right then in that moment. And so I just sat there and like stared, and just kind of like let myself feel whatever I was feeling. And then it was like one thought led to another thought, led to another thought. And then I was like, because I think it occurred to me, like, do I have anything I could sell? Because I thought, okay, I'm going to have to get a rental car. Do I have anything I could sell to like at least cover the cost of a rental car or whatever? And then, so I was just kind of like thinking about what's in my garage. And then I was like, and so anyway, long story short, one thought led to another thought, led to another thought. And I was like, what about a design? What if I could come up with a simple design that I could just like put on t-shirts, and maybe somebody would want to buy t-shirts? And because like in the town where I live, that's a thing that you'll see happen a lot, where like it's a really community in a lot of ways, like really like it's a small knit community, and they love helping each other out. So there was precedent for that. I'd seen that it could like that it happened before. And so I was like, and so that led to another thing, led to another thing. And I just like, without getting stressed out and trying to force anything to happen, I just like thought about it, and then had an idea for a design, went and sat down and like made it on my computer. And then like, and so I already had some pieces in place from the other times that I thought, so like I had a website in place, but like I made this design, I put it on t-shirts, magnets, whatever. And then I just posted it in a community group and then walked away from it. And then like in the group, I was honest. I was like, I was in a car wreck. I'm having some fear. This is my way of dealing with my fear. If you see something cute and you want to buy it and like help me out, that would be great. And so I did. And on my website, which I had a shop on for like 6 months, and the only person that had bought anything from it was me. I went from like 2 sales to myself to, in that day, in a span of 24 hours, 31 people went to that website and bought something. And like in a day, I had $600 in my bank account from that, And so like,
Wow.
it just showed me what was possible, like from the very beginning to the end, because like, I don't think any of that would have happened if I hadn't just like stopped and gotten outside of myself and like just relaxed and like taken all the pressure off in that moment, because that's what opened up the space for the ideas to flow in, for me to have the energy to go do it. Like It was, yeah. So
I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, and I've thought about this a lot too, because I was just in a crash and it was my fault. And that's when your insurance goes up. But I was going through so many similar things that you're going through. And I thought about, okay, what's the lesson? Why did I go through this? And I have my idea, but I would like to hear your idea of, and we're talking about, you were saying it's funny, the timing of it, like when you have $50 in your bank account or checking account, banking account, and then that happens. So what's going on there? What do you think's going on there?
Well, I think it was a lot of different things. I think it was just trust, like, an exercise in trust for me. I think it was an exercise in vulnerability, because I love helping other people, but I'm not always honest when I need help, or it's not always easy for me to ask for help in that way. So I think that was part of it. And then also,
so you're saying the crash happened so that you can practice trust. Right. Okay.
Practice trust that things are going to work out, that everything really does happen for a reason. And no matter how shitty this seems in this moment,
right,
there is a reason, and it's going to work out, you know? So that was one part of it. I think that like being willing to ask for help was another part of it, because that's something that's hard for me to do without shame. I could ask for help, but I would ask in this like, I'm not worthy, please take pity on me kind of way, rather than an empowered, like, this is what the situation is. You don't have to help me, but if you want to, here's how you can. So that was another part of it. And then the third part of it was like, honestly, I came out on top in that. Like my car was totaled. I got a check for $4,000 from above the value, from like what I owed on my car and the value of it. I got a check for $4,000. I found a car that was just like my old car, but had a sunroof and was less expensive
Hell
than my
yeah.
other car. And those two clients that I was gonna was supposed to meet with that day that I was freaking out about, like I did end up meeting with them and I got their business and like even more. So it was just, so it was a lot of different things. We're like, there was a lot of different ways. We're looking back now. It's easy to look back now and see all of that. It was a lot better in that moment, you know, but like there were so many ways that I can see now that it was almost like that it was perfectly orchestrated by the cosmos to like that had to lead to that, had to lead to that, had to lead to that. And so.
Yeah, that's so cool. And then the idea that, again, the idea, you like stopping thought and going outside and whatever happens, happens, and just being is my version of sitting in my car and chilling out. The same exact thing instead of, you know, and this idea that I talk about, and a lot of people talk about this idea of acting from inspiration instead of motivation, right? Motivation is, how am I going to get money and how am I going to take care of this car and what am I going to do and rent a car and how am I going to bring money in for this? And that's like comes from fear and shoulds and trying. And then what you did was you chilled out and like, then you got inspiration. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And it's funny because it can feel like a real fine line between the two, you know, like,
yeah.
But yeah, yes, I think that's a big component of it is like, and that does take maybe some work, like inner work kind of, but in terms of like recognizing what is a true inspiration, you know, and what is being motivated by fear.
Totally. And practice. Yeah.
Yeah. But really like what it all boils down for me, the where I've gotten to now and the quickest like go-to for me to be able to discern if I need to discern is like, I can feel something in my body. When an idea comes to me, I can feel my heart open or I can feel myself like tensed up. And so to me, that's like it's almost like a cheat sheet to figuring out, is this inspiration or is this an urge, as Joshua would call it, you know?
And how long have how long have you been able to do that?
Well, so I've done different variations of it for a while, where like a long time ago, probably around the same time that I started listening to Joshua, there was this other woman. So like Joshua and this other woman, her name was Melanie Tanya Evans or something. They were my introduction to these kinds of ideas. So it wasn't until much later that I heard Abraham, but this other woman was talking about muscle testing. And so it's where you take your fingers on one hand and link them with your fingers on the other hand, then yeah, you pull. And if it slips apart, that means that it's a no from your body. And if it like stays together, it's a yes. And so that's the first time that I realized that kind of power was inside of me, you know, or that guidance could come from inside in that way. And so for a long time, I would do that when I had a question, but then I don't even know when it was, but somewhere along the way, like I just started getting more grounded in my body in general, because I liked before to live up in the clouds, you know, and just kind of numbed out or ignored the signals that my body were sending me. So as I became more attuned to what was happening actually inside of me physically, and the relationship that had to then the emotional and the spiritual sides too, that's when it got easier to just like feel into my chest, you know, and like, so it's a gradual process, but
you know, and you know, as we're talking about this, you know, lots of times, often when you kind of when we try to apply this letting go part and the surrender part, number one, it's when you're first trying this, and even now, it's very uncomfortable, the unknown. So getting comfortable in the unknown is something to be practiced, and it's a skill to keep practicing, because it's not a comfortable thing. What the hell? And that's why I think we want to problem solve so much, is because we want to know, we want to figure it out. And so it's hard to chill out, and it can be, and it's especially when you're in a situation maybe where you need to bring in money, or you need something as dire. That's the time to chill out. But but that's the double-edged sword, because that's the hardest time to chill out sometimes.
Right. Especially in this, and I think that things are changing, but in this society that we all like live in, that has been the like traditional way of doing things. You are supposed to go out there and make it happen, you know?
Yeah.
If you sit back, then you're lazy. And so it's understandable that we have all these beliefs built up about why that is what we should be doing.
Totally.
But yeah, I was thinking that earlier when you were telling your first story about how much courage it actually takes to be willing to rest, relax, focus on feeling good, you know, and get everything in place internally before then going out and doing anything in the world. That it takes so much courage to be able to relax into that and exist in the unknown, because
It really does. Yeah.
it can be a lot, you know, just
Yeah.
like not only dealing with our own feelings about it, but then the questions from people around us, or,
Right.
you know, so.
Yeah. And how are we being perceived, and caring
Mhm.
about that. So then you have to learn not to care as much, and keep working on not caring and trusting that where you
Yeah.
are. And often what happens is you try to do this, and then you might like the idea of chilling out, raising your vibration, feeling better, then you'll get inspiration. Sometimes you don't get inspiration right away. Like you chilling out and you got it right, you got it faster. And I think it's because you've been practicing this for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
Often you're chilling out and 2 weeks pass by and it doesn't come when you think it should come. And then you're challenged again, like, is this working? Do I need to hit the pavement and go back to problem solving, figuring it out? And then you're like, no, I tried that, you know, and then, but so that part, it's again, that's our timing, not the universal timing. That is another thing to practice, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you're right that, like, I mean, not all of my things have come that quickly.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
I know.
I want to make that very clear. That
Yeah.
was one example, but it does not always operate that way. But like what I'm figuring out for myself is just as powerful for me, if not more so. Like I said, that trust is one of the lessons from that. And so, yes, there is this idea of trust in the universe, in like everything, that everything is going to work out. But even like what's been, I think, the biggest propeller or whatever, like giving me the most momentum in this past year for me is building trust in myself to be okay no matter what happens, to be okay if I get what I want, to be okay if I don't get what I want, to be okay if something comes out of left field, you know, just like no matter what, to be okay and to be able to handle it like emotionally inside of myself. Like that ability is what helps me when it feels like I am just suspended in not knowing anything, you know, just knowing that no matter what, like I have my own love and acceptance and I will be okay. It's powerful.
And the more we kind of prove it to ourselves, the more we practice it, then the more you can trust. You're like, okay, I've been through this before. And when I've let go, things have worked out. And it's a little different now, but this is the work. Yeah. So I'll talk about what I'm going through now. So, you know, I'm coming out of that. I'm out of that skating period, and my business has changed. How I'm getting clients has changed. And so I think here's the thing though, the time that I have to keep reminding myself that, because sometimes you think with the law of attraction or whatnot, you'll get to a point where, oh, I got it. And I'm I'm aligning high. And so I'm set, boy, you know. And then and then when things don't work out, you're like, oh, you think something's wrong, right? But thanks to, again, Joshua and Gary and the idea what happens is happening for you. That's huge, right, Kyla? Like we have to keep remembering that. Okay, so then and I mentioned this before, the question of why is this happening to me instead of how is this for me? You know, the questions we ask ourselves can be disempowering or empowering, and limiting, and keeps us stuck or keeps us open. So why is this happening for me is kind of a victim thing, and something's happening wrong. Why is this happening to me? And how is this for me? Kind of, it opens up your heart, like you mentioned before, and kind of, okay. And sometimes you don't have that answer, but the idea of, okay, maybe a statement or an affirmation that, okay, I know this is for me, and maybe I don't know how yet, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So what's happening with me now is just the idea of changing my business in a different way and growing more. So the reason why this is good, because we're always reaching for new levels. And if you can't skate forever, you just can't and grow at the same time, because you have to challenge yourself and you have to like reach for new levels. And also I don't know, for me, if you're skating for so long, you can get complacent and you can stop challenging yourself, because, and I mean, yeah. So, and I don't mean that as a judgmental self-judgment way, but you're just skating and you're just doing fine. There's no challenges. So we have to see the challenging parts, or at least try to, as, okay, this is for me. This is the next part of my journey. How can I relax into this? How can I even enjoy it? And how can I not stress the fuck out? Right?
Yeah.
And that's the work. Not, again, I remind myself not to figure out how to bring in more money, which is where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Is to, I haven't practiced this in a while because I have been skating. So, and so living day by day and doing the work to feel better. And I have this power walk that I do. I go for a walk and I do all my little tools. And my last episode was on the power walk, and just to feel better. And then trust what comes is happening for you. And, so I just, again, I wanted to make this episode to talk about this stuff when I'm not skating and when things are challenging. And that's where I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the aspects of your business that light you up the most? Because I think what you were saying earlier about when you were focused on this thing that you wanted with like a relationship, and then this passion came in, and so what are the aspects of your business that light you up the most? Like, what are the parts that you really love doing?
Yeah. It's the idea of, if someone's looking for it, it's the idea of self-empowerment, like that these tools, the stuff that we're talking about, if anyone's ready, I love to help people get there and feel more self-empowered and how to get where they want to be. And so I'm excited about this idea of leading edge law of attraction principles with faster EFT tapping, which I think faster EFT tapping is an amazing system to allow us to live these principles. Is one, and there's different systems and tools that people use. So I'm excited about the combination of this and sharing it with people. And I love my sessions and my one-on-ones. I think I need to expand more into group stuff and maybe go on a bigger stage in a bigger way. I don't know what that's going to look like. I have ideas, but I'm not forcing it. And I'm not trying to figure out how that's going to happen. But yeah, so that's it. So this just self-empowerment has been my passion, because when people have blocks and when people are stuck, or when people have trauma from their past, that is keeping us in patterns, keeping them in patterns, because lots of our stuff from our past is keeping us in patterns that we don't like, and we don't know how to get out of it. And when I found faster EFT tapping system, I thought, oh my God, we can actually go back and change how we hold these traumas and turn it around, change the story of that, so that we're not attracting from that place, we're attracting from a better place. And so, yeah, I'm just passionate about that. That turns me on, and sharing that with people who want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that. I've seen you do some sessions. Like I've had one or two with you, and then also just, it brings me joy watching you do what you do. Because you have your own unique like flavor. I know that there are a lot of like tapping practitioners, and then Robert has this system that he came up with, and that you've had a lot to do with that. But your unique flavor of doing it, I think, is just so special, because you bring not only all of the like wisdom that you have and then the practical tools that come along with EFT, but you're just like the markwshihadeh, like genuine, like you're such a safe and warm presence to be exploring that kind of stuff around. And then you also have your sense of humor that you bring into it. So it's, yeah, no matter what happens, I'm glad that you exist in that realm, because I think it's a really needed.
Thanks, Kyla.
Yeah.
You know, that just reminded me is that I've been getting, so I did this last podcast episode, and it's the first one I did in a long time where it's just me talking about a concept and sharing the power walk. And I'm sitting in front of the camera and I'm talking for 15 minutes, maybe 13, 14 minutes. And then I had it and I was going to release it, but I started feeling a little vulnerable and a little fear was coming up. And then I started getting, the universe will give you some stuff that you need to, that can help you. And it was basically, and I can't remember the messages, but it was just the last few days. And it's basically people who are being unapologetically themselves and having the courage, like you're saying, having the courage to do that. And that was the message to me, was not everyone's, and I thought about this a lot, but this is what I needed at that time. Not everyone's going to like my style. Not everyone's going to like me. But some people are. And so just be yourself and whatever, screw it, just put it out there. Because I don't know, I felt lots of times, and I used to feel this stronger in the past, where this stuff is kind of corny and I'm talking about universe and airy fairy stuff, and all my friends can see it on Facebook. And I don't have, it's not all our group too, it's other people who don't even buy into this stuff. And your mind starts to think about what they're going to think. And then I shut that off pretty fast, because we've learned how to become aware of ourselves and like, all right. So anyway, put it out there, and just, if you dig it, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. But what turns you on? Like, what gets you excited?
Well, I mean, for me, it's like what I do feels like an art, like to some people, it's just a website, like when I'm designing a website. But to me, it's so much more than a website, because I get to peer into somebody and bring together all these components of who they are to help them connect with somebody else who's maybe never even met them before, never had any idea about them or what they do or what they have to offer. And I get to like create this work of art out of their art, or like the pieces of who they are, and then foster connection between them and whoever they want to reach. So that's the aspect of it that lights me up the most. And also, like, the people that I love working with are the most are people who kind of I can relate to, in terms of maybe like just getting to this place where they really have started to believe in themselves and be willing to put themselves out there, because it takes like that level of vulnerability that you have in sharing those podcasts or in putting yourself out there, is here's this thing that I do, and it feels super special to us. So the idea of somebody else not seeing it so special can feel really like,
right.
Yeah. But so I love getting to be along that journey with people as they are putting themselves out there in new ways, and so for me, it's so much more than a website or so much more than a social media, whatever. So it's that aspect of it, like getting to be alongside people while they are seeing themselves in a new light, and then like fostering connection with other people from that place, because that's been a really important part of my journey for myself.
Wow. Well, I mean, now you've shared this with me in Florida, and I have to say, and we will connect on these trips, and then months will go by where we don't connect, So I'm not with you on your journey, with you in your journey that often or a lot, but when I heard you talk about that, and I hear you now talking about that in your own special Kyla way. And then you were kind of talking about me and watching me doing it in my way. What I kind of want to share with people is that I'll just speak for myself. I've tried so many different things, man. I've tried different ventures, and it didn't feel natural. And I did the grind, and I've tried this is doing it in this way. And I guess what I want to say is that if you're in there, if you're someone working on stuff and trying stuff out, it's, and if it doesn't click right away, or even in a year or two or three or four, it's okay, because it will click. And with you, Kyla, when I talked to you in Florida, I'm like, oh shit, Kyla is clicking, man. And I know you, I'm not saying you haven't clicked before, but I haven't heard you in that way. And again, I haven't been with you on this journey, but boy, hearing you, it just sounded like it was clicking. Kyla's,
Yeah.
and just how you said it. And again, that comes, if anyone's clicking, for most of us, it comes from all the years of not clicking and trying shit and learning and taking from this and trying something else, learning what you don't like. And, what do you think?
100%, 100%. I would, yes, wholeheartedly agree with that. Especially like if there is anybody listening to this now that is in that place where they're trying this and they're trying that, like every single thing that I have tried along this path, it's been like 10 years that I've been freelancing and like starting and stopping different things, but every single thing that I've done has like given me the foundation for what I need for where I am right now. And you're right that it does feel like I'm clicking in a new way right now. And so that's being reflected back to me in my outer circumstances, where I am entering this period of skating, like almost skating too fast, where I want to pump the brakes a little in terms of like everything that's flowing in for me right now. But the biggest key, and it's just like incremental growth over long periods of time that kind of adds up, but is really just seeing the value in myself, because I've always seen it in other people, and I've always had this love and acceptance for other people, but really giving all of that to myself at the same level. And that's what's new for me. And that's what's, I feel like, creating all this momentum in all of these other areas. That's probably what feels different when I'm talking about it is, and not that I don't still, I mean, like last week I was like, who am I to be saying, well,
Right.
So I still have the imposter syndrome. I've just started letting that be okay. Understanding that that's a normal part of the process. It doesn't mean that I've failed or that I should just go back to, it's all part of the process. And letting wherever I am be okay, accepting all of it as just like part of the process is what is shifting internally for me in huge ways.
So I guess the lesson is, if it's not clicking, ask yourself, how can I enjoy this journey? And how can I know that this is for me? And how can I practice that and try to enjoy this journey? Mm-hmm. And, things are, in other words, I think we'll realize that things are clicking more than they seem to be or appear to be, if you kind of look for that stuff.
100%.
Is that true? Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I mean, because I see this in myself all the time when I will think that something's not going my way.
Right.
It's because I'm like, okay, our bodies are a great example of this. Like, say my elbow hurts. And so all I can think about is how my elbow hurts. When I'm thinking about how much my elbow hurts, I'm not thinking about how my fingers are functioning perfectly, right, how my eyesight, like I can still see, I can still hear. And I mean, trillions of cells in my body are operating perfectly, but all I can think about or focus on is how this one spot on my elbow hurts, and that's not to say that like our elbows don't deserve love or care or attention or whatever, but like remembering at the same time, like, yes, this is in this situation over here, but also there's all of this, like, where am I not recognizing where I actually do already have everything that I want? Like, so,
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So who do you think is your, like, if someone's out there, who do you think you can help the most?
Well, I guess, I don't know, because I have issues with the word help, like, even though I say that and I do that, who can I help the most? I mean,
or how would you put it? What's a better way that you put it?
Well, and it's not really that much different. I just get finicky maybe, but like service, like who can I be of the most service to?
Okay.
But so it's somebody who has this vision of what they want. And I mean, right now it's usually like around starting a business, because that's what I'm interested in. That's what I'm doing, like figuring out how to move from like a hobby into a business, or like being able to create a living doing what you love, like from a passion. And so somebody who has all the ideas and all the energy, but isn't quite sure what all pieces they need and how to bring it all together and make it like a fully functioning thing. And in terms of establishing an online presence. So the things that I have the most passion for doing right now are like web design, branding and logos, you know, coming up like copywriting. So figuring out how to write a bio for yourself and all the different spots on a website that you need the text for. I mean, so I don't know if I'm answering your question. I clearly need to work on my elevator speech.
Good for you. No, you did. People who are just, you said it when, well, what I heard was if people are just starting out and they're thinking about bringing their passion into a business, or, you know, just starting something out, new entrepreneurs, new people who are just even maybe considering how to bring what they love into maybe a venture. I mean, I'm not saying it as good as you would, but
well, because in addition to like one of my favorite parts of all of that, in addition to like creating a website for you, I love like meeting with you and being there alongside you while you are figuring out so many of these things for yourself. It's not just me with all the answers giving it to you. Like, yeah, I might be the one with the technical skills to be able to like bring it to life, bring it to reality, but getting to like ask you questions, then watch as you discover for yourself what exactly you want all of this to be. Just kind of like bringing it, making the vision clearer.
Yeah. And, you know, as you're talking, I'm thinking it doesn't have to be someone new. It could be anyone, because you can be like, I've been in business and I just feel like, this isn't authentically me, and, or I'm stuck, or I just need a boost. I need to figure out in a clearer way what I'm doing and how to, you know, present that to the world. So you could be someone in business for 15, 20 years and you can help them too.
That's a great point, because I have somebody that I'm working with right now that is already established and has a lot of the things in place, you know, and like it's perfectly functional and it's good enough and all of that, but like it just doesn't feel like her anymore. And so she wants to breathe new life into it. Like she's still probably going to be doing a lot of the same things, but yeah, sorry, there's a call coming in. But yeah, so just basically like breathing new life, or like kind of, reinvigorating with who you are now. So.
Okay. So how can people get in touch with you?
You can send me an email at hello@kdLOVEco, like Kyla Dawn Loveco, .com. I have a website you can go to. It's kdLOVEco.com. Or I'm also on TikTok. TikTok is probably the best place to like,
oh, wow. Okay.
see me and like, I don't know. That's probably where I show up the most regularly online, but that's also at kdLOVEco. So
yeah,
there are a few ways.
Awesome, Kyla. Well, is there anything else before we kind of wrap it up that you think that you want to share?
I think that's good. I am complete for now. We are complete.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I'm always down for a round two.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, that was free flowing, and boy, yeah, we've been going at it for a while. I felt like it was really hard work and lots of struggle in it. But
it was very challenging. I tried very hard.
Right. We got stuck and we stopped and we didn't know what to say, and we got tired and interrupted. No.
Is this a surrender point where we just get off?
Kyla, thank you so much, man. I loved it. And I love you. And thanks for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Talk soon.
All right.